upside down. So I just wanted to share a few tips to kind of help me along the way get started. We're going to be going over 2 strengthening drills that you can do, 2 drills that will help you start to hop up into a handstand, and then 2 ways of actually hopping up into a handstand. So for the strengthening drills, the first one that we're going to do is just simply called a walkout. So you can start standing and bend over wherever you're at, work your way into a plank position. And what we're looking for here in our plank position is for the shoulders to be stacked over the wrists, so we're not too far back, we're not too far forward, and the hips aren't super high or super low. So we're looking for that nice strong plank position. We're pushing the ground away from us, rounding through the upper back. Heels are stacked about over the toes-ish, and we're really zipping up the belly button into the spine, so we're not having any dip in the low back. From here, we're going to slowly walk the feet up, and the hips will begin to lift, all the while keeping the shoulders over the wrist. Get the toes as close as you can to the hands, and then walk them back out. But be careful, because the tendency as you walk the feet back out into plank is for the shoulders to follow. So we're not going into downward dog. We're staying in high plank and walking the feet back out. All right, so walk the feet back in. Bring the toes up to the back of the hands. Keep the shoulders over the wrist. Walk the feet back out. Keep the shoulders over the wrist. Okay, so those are a really good way to kind of create strength in the upper body. Start to build the strength in the shoulders, create that line of power without going upside down. You can do really however many you want. I think when I first started training handstands, I would get on my mat and try and do about 10 of them, but really up to you and your body. Just do it until you start to feel the burn, all right? Find your edge. Second thing we're gonna do, a little bit of a Lolasana variation. If you guys have my ebooks, you'll probably be familiar with Lolasana step-ups. So it's kind of a variation off of those. What we're gonna do is we're gonna sit on our heels. We're gonna put our hands out in front of us, just a little bit in front of the knees. And this is really gonna practice, or help us practice diving head down into a handstand. So a lot of times what happens when we jump into a handstand is we like to block ourselves, and we tend to, as we jump up, kind of look forward and bring ourselves way over our wrists. So what we want to think about when we're going into a handstand is diving straight down towards the ground. So sit back on your heels, place your hands just a bit in front of you, and then we're going to push the ground away from us, tuck the head, and dive straight down. All right, so you'll kind of notice if your hands are maybe too far out in front of you and you go to dive straight down. See how my shoulders are way behind my wrists? We want to make sure the hands are close enough to the knees so that when we dive down and get super light on the toes, we're stacking the shoulders over top of the wrists. Okay, so same thing. You can do anywhere from like 10 to 20 of these, and what it looks like when you're actually doing the exercise, you'll bring the hands up, place them down, dive down. Sit back up, dive down, up, dive down. All right, and you might start to feel in your toes it actually is a great stretch for the top of the foot. So if your toe or foot starts to cramp, it's pretty normal. A lot of us aren't used to being on our toes like this, so it may feel a little bit funky at first. Those are the 2 drills you can do to strengthen your handstand without actually going upside down. All right. The next 2 things we're going to do are drills to help you work towards hopping into a handstand, but again, may not be ready to get all that air time, but we're still going to find just a little bit of float. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come into a frog position. So you can find your low yogi squat, your malasana. We're going to come into a bit of a frog stance. And we're going to set the hands out in front of us quite a ways, all right? So the point of this drill is to help us keep a straight arm. Lots of times what happens when we jump into a handstand is we'll see that dip into the arms and we like to muscle ourselves up. What we're looking for is keeping a nice straight arm. So I want you to come into a yogi squat, straighten your arms out in front of you, and then set your hands down onto the mat. From here, we're gonna help use our lower body, and it is gonna be a little bit of momentum involved, but with as much control as you can muster, start to shift your weight into your upper body by lifting the hips and then just making a little hop. And then you can come back down. So same thing, we're lifting the hands and then placing them back down, finding a little hop. All right, but by doing this, when we hop, you can see how my shoulders stack over my wrists, but I'm not really going into a handstand. So I'm placing the hands, shoulders stack over the wrists, bring the feet back down. And you can even just do baby hop. Baby hop. All right, but remember the key here is to stack the shoulders over the wrists and make sure we're keeping those arms nice and straight. So I'm not bending into the arms as I do this. I'm keeping the arms super straight and finding a little bit of air time. What's gonna be really helpful to think about here is the drill that we just did when we were thinking about diving straight down. As you work into these little baby hops, try not to move your energy forward. It's gonna be really easy to want to move your energy forward as you do these, but think about that drill that we just did. Dive straight down into your mat. So hands out in front of you, bring the head down, okay? All right, again, up to you how many you wanna do of those. The next thing we're gonna do is called switch kicks. So we'll come into a short downward dog, look in between the hands, and then we're gonna walk the feet forward until the shoulders begin to stack over top of the wrist. Again, you're gonna hear me say this whole video, finding your line of power is so important. What happens when we begin to kick into our handstands back here is we use a lot more momentum to try and kick up than we would if we stack the shoulders over the wrist and just worked on nice and controlled hops, right? Okay, so we came into our short downward dog, we stacked the shoulders over the wrist. These are called switch kicks. Again, don't worry about going for height of the kick, rather think about control and think about just finding a little baby float. So again, shifting, transferring the energy into the upper body. Bring one foot out behind you. Again, shoulders over the wrist. Take a tiny little hop and land on the other foot. So see what I did there? You hop off one foot, land on the other. Now the key here is to land lightly in any of these things. Even in the frog hops that we just did, you want to receive your body. So what happens if you're not is you jump off, thud, big thud on the ground. So we want to receive with our knees and make yourself a ninja. So you want to be as light as possible. All right, so try and do 5 on each leg. So jump up, switch, land on the other foot. Jump up, switch, land on the other foot. And you can see my hips aren't going very high. Again, this isn't about getting into a handstand. It's just about feeling that transfer of weight into the upper body. If you feel ready, you can take this into a handstand if you want to by hopping up, switching, lightly landing, hopping up, switching, lightly landing. So you can see how you can take this as little or as far as you want to. Sorry, it's really hard to do all this and not lose your breath. All right, so we have the 2 strengthening drills, the 2 hopping drills on how to work into hopping into a handstand. And then I want to show you guys my 2 favorite ways that I learned how to jump into a handstand. So the first one is a single leg hop. And what we're going to do is same setup drill, so coming into that short downward dog and then walking the feet forward until you start to feel the shoulders stack over top of the wrists. We're going to bring one foot slightly behind us, so whatever foot you want to start with, there's always going to be one side that feels way easier than the other side. It's completely normal. Just make sure that you're practicing both. So one foot out a little ways, and then we're going to hop off the foot that's in front and bend that knee into our chest. All right, so little hop, bend the knee into the chest. Little hop, bend the knee into the chest. And again, this doesn't have to be a big hop if you don't want it to be, but what we want to think about is I say knee to chest because it keeps that nice line of power. All right, so as soon as I start to bring that heel to the butt, you can see how I get that dip and arch in my low back. And then I pull my knee back into my chest, and I find that length all the way out from the tailbone to the crown of the head. So that's that nice long line that we're looking for. So you can even practice right here. If you bring the heel to the butt, you're gonna feel that arch in your low back. But if you think knee to chest, your tailbone and your low back starts to lengthen out again. So that's the first way you can jump into a handstand. Remember to practice both sides. Second way is a little bit trickier. It's a tuck jump. We're bringing both feet off the ground at the same time. So you're gonna find that stance again, where you bring the shoulders over the wrist. And then from here, we're gonna bring both feet up. So this is where it gets a little scary, but bear with me, you guys can do this. You don't have to take big jumps. Start to shift the weight into the upper body and see if you can tuck the heels up. Tuck the heels up. All right, so again, thinking about bringing knees to chest instead of heels to butt. If you start to find some air time, think knees to chest, knees to chest, knees to chest. As soon as you bring the heels to the butt, see what it does to my low back? I start to get that dip. So bring the knees back into the chest, lengthen out through the whole spine. Okay? Like anything, handstands take so much practice and so much patience. So be patient with yourselves. Go back, take the time to do the drills first, strengthen your body, prepare it, make sure that you're working on your foundation before just hopping right into a handstand. Hopefully this was helpful for you. It's definitely stuff that worked for me when I was just beginning. But yeah, don't compare yourself to anyone else. You are unique, you're on your own journey. This is all gonna happen in the time that it's supposed to. So put in the work, be patient with yourself, and I promise you guys will get this.